I think we just do this. I think that's the plan. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Remain Indoors podcast, where we'll be looking at some lighter news from around the internet, exploring some science in our everyday lives, and talking about the ways we're keeping ourselves entertained at home. Remain indoors. Hi guys, I'm your host, Richard Spanners Ready, and I'm joined as ever by Matt Rumpets, already distracted by the chat room. How's it going, Matt?
Well, I was just saying thank you to my many Tech Time fans in the chat. Turns out there's a lot of them. So not that I wanted to bring that up and trigger you or anything.
So, as part of our Missed Apex podcast, we used to have really good regular sessions where you and Matthew Summerfield from motorsport.com, now motorsport.com, used to get together and discuss tech. And it would be a chance for me to kind of, dip out and not be on a show on Missed Apex. And for you, you're like Commander Riker, really, of Missed Apex, aren't you? And it was a good chance for you to have your own command and your own ship for a while. And and they keep getting better and better. And annoyingly, this episode that's just out, your Tech Time, I listened to it immediately and I was overcome with a furious jealousy because it sounded good. Your hosting was good. The audio was fantastic. It was edited really well. And I was just like, right, this has to stop. No more Tech Times.
Don't worry. I'm sure it was just a happy accident and won't ever happen again. It'll just be 90 minutes of tires next time.
Yeah, and everyone's like, oh, look how good the show is without Spanners. And I'm like, oh, yeah, no, I'm really happy for Matt that he put together a good show. But just know that I'm dying inside and I feel threatened and I'm going to try and tear you down, like just destroy your confidence from here on in.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to Sunday then.
Yeah, it should do. Should be fun. Should be fun on the podcast. We've also got a guest with us. We've got Dr. Andrew Holding, giving us some knowledge and some science, confidence. Hello, Dr. Holding. You're on mute, bud.
Hello. Yeah, no, I discovered that shortly after going hello, but the mute had not come off.
And I'm not
always, you've got to do that at the beginning of every Zoom call, isn't it? Just everyone go, you're on mute, and have a discussion about being on mute.
Not on my Zoom calls, Dr. Holding. I'm trying to do like a semi-professional production here, but I'm not going to edit that out, so everyone knows it's your fault and not mine. And you don't sound like your normal self. You don't sound rich like on your normal road podcaster. Explain why.
Because I'm on a different microphone. Because it's really hard to get a decent microphone at the moment because everyone's decided podcasting is what they want to do. And I'm in York, not Cambridgeshire, so I don't have my Rode microphone. But I may just, drive the 400-mile round trip to get it after this.
Yes, please. That would be very considerate. But you're absolutely right. I mean, everybody is getting into podcasting. I'm really looking forward to COVID being over and for everyone to just go back to their normal jobs because we're being flooded in podcast land with actors and comedians who have nowhere else to go. So I really am wondering, like, when it all opens back up again and people are making movies and TV and stage shows, are they all going to bog off and like leave podcasts alone? Hopefully, Matt, they'll get bored.
Yeah, well, I mean, you say bored, but I can tell you because there was a big article in the New York Times about the devastation of the cultural landscape. A lot of these people are desperate to make any money any possible way they can, and if they have even the most minor bit of celebrity, they're trying to leverage that. They're trying to leverage that into whatever money they can make to just hang on so that when we eventually have a vaccine and we can go back to public performances inside, they can actually go back to work doing the thing that they were trained to do.
Yeah, instead of having...
I have a bit of sympathy for their position right now, even though it does make our lives slightly more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I wish them all well, but I was nice and cozy in this little podcast shelter. And obviously, competition for that and for things like audiobooks is really high because every actor has now got themselves a home set up and they're doing audiobooks. And, I was speaking to a rights holder who didn't select me, but was nice enough to send me a message. He just said, I've never had anything like the amount of auditions that we've had for this title. So I was like, maybe I'll give that for a rest for a little while and wait for films to start being made. But I want to start the show by saying to you, Dr. Holding, thank you.
That's very kind of you.
Mm.
Which were you saying thank you for today?
I am saying sincerely, I am saying thank you for trying to cure cancer, because it's really important and it seems really hard. So I just wanted to say thanks.
That's nice of you.
Well,
I mean, we're working on it. It's taking a while, but we'll hopefully get there eventually.
do people ever, day to day, just go, cheers, Andy? Like, that cancer that you're trying to cure, like, cheers for that. Like, thanks for being on it. I'm glad you're on it.
Not really. I mean, usually what happens when someone finds you work on cancer is they then tell you about how their cousin, their aunt, their brother, sister has cancer, had cancer, died of cancer. And then it becomes a really weird sort of situation where you're going, yeah, I have nothing useful to add to this. I'm not a psychotherapist or a clinician. I work on molecular biology. And that conversation has happened many times.
So you're suddenly, you share what you do for a living and you're talking about people's worst experiences in life. And that's, a bit of a downer, I guess, if you're just trying to have a pint. But on the plus side, because of people like you, we're going to have less and less of those conversations going forward.
I mean, that's the hope. And we were just really lucky that I just got funding to do some research for the next 3 years. And we're going to look at how the compound dexamethasone, which you may have heard in the news because it's a thing that's been as a helping thing to give to people who've got COVID, how it does different things in different cells in the body. And in breast cancer, it actually makes the cells survive more than they should. And in your immune system, it makes it run away and die. And actually, that's something that's really useful because you normally call these things steroids and you put them on you when you have inflammation. So we use them a lot in cancer patients because they get a lot of inflammation from the treatments. But we want to look at in our lab to find out how we can still use these compounds because they're essential, but not actually cause the cancer to sort of become a bit stronger because of it, which is an unfortunate side effect.
Oh, so the cancer, it can be accelerated as a side effect?
It's sort of, it's more it protects the cancer from the chemo.
Oh.
So it's going to promote survival in the cells, and that's not a good thing, obviously, to a patient. But the way clinicians see it at the moment is you have to use these steroids because the inflammation or the other side effects are unpleasant, and it's always this balance between best outcome and patient sort of ongoing tolerance of the treatment you're giving them. Because if you make the treatment too unpleasant, the patient doesn't want to continue, and that's reasonable and something we have to actually think about, that they're human beings, which if you just look at the cold hard facts gets forgotten.
It does. And I'm going to really upset you now, Dr. Holding, while Matt asks you a question. I got you to crank your volume up because we couldn't hear you before. Do you reckon you could just go into Zoom and just crank it down to about 70%, and I'll sort it out at this end? Matt, what was your interjection there?
Well, we've actually got several questions coming in from the chat room.
Oh, let's answer them.
Since we were talking about cancer, Mark Greenhow asks, is the research just for big C cancer, or do different cancers actually have different avenues of research? So I guess he's asking that question, and more specifically, like your particular line of inquiry, will that be applicable to all cancer treatments or just to specific ones?
So my focus is breast cancer. In particular, it's generally focusing on estrogen receptor positive breast cancer, which is behind 70% of breast cancers. And this whole idea of, how many different types of cancer there are is quite a difficult one to answer because every sort of organ of origin has a different cancer phenotype. And then within them, there's usually multiple subtypes. And as we get better at understanding molecular biology, what we now often say is like every cell's probably quite slightly different in the cancer, and therefore every patient's cancer is different. So what we try and do is we sort of work at the generalizable level and slowly narrow it down, but we don't generally go beyond tissue specific. So all the work I'm doing at the moment is going to focus on breast. But given it's looking at something like steroids, which are very widely used on all sorts of parts of the body, there is it could probably be more quickly applied to other forms of cancer than, say, if you were looking at a drug that was just directly trying to stop the growth of that cancer. And that becomes very specific.
So, the problem is, kids, if you're asking very, very clever questions and getting very clever answers, is I can't follow it particularly well. But it sounds positive. And obviously, I won't ask you how close you are yet to curing all cancers, because I'm sure that's what everyone asks you. However, I just wanted genuinely to say thank you, because I got a lovely email from a Palestinian chap in San Francisco who DM'd me, and I saw his Twitter handle had MD at the end, and so I was curious. Here's this person who's emailing me, and as people who produce content like I do, are lucky enough sometimes to connect with people, and people tell you about how your work and what you're doing fits in with their lives. And he was being very over flattering, giving the show far too much credit, saying, oh, you got us through this and you got us through that, and this is how you fit into your week. And it's too much in a way. It's lovely, absolutely lovely, but it's too much when you've got MD after your name, and then I click on the profile, and he's also like a cancer researcher as well, as part of his job at a hospital. And I just like, dude, stop saying thank you. I need to say thank you to you. And then I was like, and I need to say thank you to Dr. Holding when I see him as well, because there's all these guys who are going out there and making our lives genuinely better. So that's why I think we should have a Thank a Cancer Researcher Day. Hashtag Thank a Cancer Researcher. And that's why I said thank you to you.
And that's why you're so sweet.
Oh, Matt.
Well, one of the things I really do enjoy about having Dr. Andrew on the show is that he is a very, very widely read and competent authority. We do have some questions because I hear the rules are changing a bit over in your country.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I don't know if I should ask them now or save them for later.
Tell you what, let's just save them for a tiny bit, because I definitely want to do a what the hell's going on with COVID, Dr. Holding, because I've got genuinely no idea. I'm so lost. I don't know if the rules are any clearer in America, but in the UK, we've had like the health secretary talking about who you can and can't hook up with.
What rules?
They're not rules. Oh, okay. It's just the Wild West out in America. So we'll definitely clear that up. But I need to talk about my run that I went on, because if you don't tell anyone about your run, Dr. Holding, did it actually happen?
Yes.
You sound very sure.
I mean, you can tweet your runs if you want, but
yeah, no,
I think it depends what kind of person you are, Spanners. And we know that you are the kind of person who needs to talk about these things. I
am a desperate, attention-seeking missile that needs to tell people that, yes, I'm back, up and running. And I did, Matt. I did my first timed run since I started running again. And it's a little bit like when you don't step on the scales for a while because you don't want to know the horrible truth. So I did my first timed 5K, and I was like, oh, God, okay, fine, I'm ready. Let's see the horror of how much unfitter I've got.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I have a love-hate relationship with timing. I used to time all of my runs, and I had sectors. I had multiple sectors, and I would time them all, and I would keep careful track. But then I eventually realized that it was actually counterproductive in a sense,
you think?
Mentally, in terms of consistently exercising, because if I wasn't able to hit my targets, then I would in fact lose motivation. So now I just take I have a general window of time that I try to fit my run into, and as long as it goes in that window of time, I'm happy with the result.
Well, yeah, I suppose so. I can get on board with that a little bit. I like using the measure of time just to say, am I still a generally functioning human being? So I've always said, if you can put your trainers on and get around in half an hour, as a bloke, I don't know how that scales to women because I've never been one. But if you can put your shoes on and get around in half an hour, you're generally fine. Your heart's working, you're not on the verge of death, and you could probably run around in a zombie apocalypse. So I figure that if I can do that, so today was 28 minutes. I have some excuses though, Matt, before you digest that. I have some excuses. It was very hilly and it was very windy. So you can take at least 4 minutes. I think 4 minutes you could take off. It was slightly soft underfoot. So yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. That's that robs you of a tremendous amount of time. You wouldn't believe it, but it's true.
But the reason I thought of this was a talking point was my lizard brain kicked in. I think I might even have been over half an hour. It had I not happened upon a group of people leaving their office on a lunch break on my way back. And something in my lizard brain kicked off, because there was also ladies in that bunch of people. Something in my lizard brain kicked off and said, right, you must look much faster and fitter in front of the potential mates, which is stupid because I am 40, I am old and floppy, I'm biologically irrelevant. Yet something in my body, Dr. Holding, still said, puff up your chest, get your arms pumping, you show them. Why does it matter? Why do I still care as an irrelevant 40-year-old Why do I still want some people from the office to fancy me and think I'm pretty?
Doesn't it say more about your psychological status than it does about lizard brains?
Do you know, there's not some deep-rooted psychological thing. It's just I'm pathetic.
To be honest, I think we all are like that, though, aren't we? Because, you know, the whole model of social media is about external validation. Everything, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or whatever, it's all about putting something out and getting likes. And it's something we're all really vulnerable to. And I think it's probably the most toxic part of social media, is that.
Seeking external validation. And you're completely true. Like, you're right. I mean, I've started using Instagram more this year, and I value what I did by the reaction I get. And if it gets 100 likes, I feel like pretty and interesting and or funny. And it is very, very addictive. And I certainly have that same pull with tweets as well. If I think I've landed a really funny tweet and 7 people like it only, I will be my self-worth, as much as I would hate to admit being so shallow, my self-worth is affected by all those social media interactions, and indeed what the pretty lady may or may not think of me in my mind as I'm running past.
I mean, I generally have given up on this external validation since the light up penguin on my doorstep got more international press coverage than I ever have. Because, you know, was it last Christmas there was a sonic boom over Cambridgeshire? My outdoor penguin it was security camera picked up the sonic boom and the penguins there, and it ended up on BBC News and on international news channels. And I now feel, well, that penguin's now more famous than I am.
Yeah, and that hasn't done anything towards the cure for cancer or forwarding us as a human biological race. But I definitely feel it. I definitely feel that validation. Is there a cure for it? Is there a way that I can wean myself off seeking external validation for my own self-worth? Because I'll put my hand up. My self-worth definitely, well, I don't have the sort of inner strength to kind of go, oh, people are ignoring me and criticizing me, and no one wants to snog me, but I still know that I'm a really good person inside or whatever. I don't know how to do that.
I mean, you know, this is well beyond my field. I work on things you can put pipettes in and change DNA of. But I think if you look at the psychology, all the ideas behind self-help and, you know, all the good literature behind this is, yeah, there are ways to change your personality. There are ways to change who you are. I mean, there are ways to actually make yourself more charismatic. And that's genuinely something that people go out and do, and you can teach it. So I'm sure there's ways to wean yourself off, but I suspect the best thing is to delete the apps and remove them from your life.
No, I don't know. That sounds too scary, Matt. Could you? Okay, Matt. Tomorrow you've got to delete Facebook, Twitter, and well, you don't use Instagram much. Facebook, Twitter. You've got to delete them tomorrow. How do you feel?
Well, I'm in a position where I can't because I have business and work connections on both of them, and besides, I know everybody uses Twitter as some kind of validation rage venting machine, but I actually find lots and lots of fascinating and interesting bits of information and articles and scientific studies that I like to read. So for me, Twitter is as much a newspaper as it is anything else.
Yeah, that's become my front page. I used to use Facebook for that, not so much anymore. But I'm getting a little bit fed up of Twitter as my news front as well. And I'm definitely not buying any newspapers either. So I don't know. And this is why I think I am increasingly out of the loop, and why I've gotten more and more lost on like the current affairs. Like my wife said to me, "Oh, what's the rule of 6 now, and what can you do and can't do?" And I said, "I don't know." Anyway, sorry, Matt. We were talking front pages for news.
Yes, well, Mark would like to know from Dr. Andrew if there's an actual cure for typing comments onto a YouTube live stream with 23 people in it.
Cure for typing comments. Yeah, I'm not sure we can help you there. I think you're lost on that one.
You're beyond it.
Sorry. There's only one option. We have to put you down.
Yep, that's it. You're going to turn you into glue. That's all. We must have not have advertised it very well. We normally have at least sort of like 40 in our live streams. It's all your fault, Matt. It's everyone's fault but my own. But
you were the one who put a notification in the chat in the Slack at 8:17.
Did I do it too early?
So nobody was prompted to come right when the show started.
I did it too
Slack
early.
bot ate mine.
Sorry about that. Right, in any case, the reason this came to my mind was I had a question for both of you. As old biologically irrelevant men. Like I've been told that I'm not having any more babies. Matt, I'm presuming that you're done because you gave up after one anyway. And Dr. Holding, probably a personal question, but you've already got the correct amount of children, so you're not going to have any more, right?
My wife says she never wants to be pregnant again, so that's. I mean, there are ways around that, but none of which are going to go well for me, aren't
they? The big stick that she keeps jabbing at. Just get away from me! I'm never doing it again. So we are biologically irrelevant as far unless there's a zombie apocalypse and I become the head of like the survivor tribe or whatever. I will definitely go evil in the apocalypse. Bit of a spoiler there. If you were to lose your partner to whatever, to boredom or death, hopefully not. I'm definitely not hoping our wives die, but if they were to die from, I don't know, overly criticizing me, like, or I don't know, if she ever, like, her heart gives out because she just had to tell me for the 1,000th time that I didn't put the fork in the right place, because apparently she said to me she reloads the dishwasher every single time I load it up. So I think I do the dishwasher, and apparently I don't because she has to redo it. So if she ever has to die, if she dies from excessive dishwasher rearranging, what would you guys do? Would you move on? Because I was thinking I literally wouldn't date. Like, even though I'm only 40, I literally wouldn't date. I would play golf. I would get quite good at sim racing, but that would be it. There was no way I could sit there and try and like say to someone and go like, oh, do you like me? I like you too. And then do all the stuff you have to do when you're dating. There's no way. I would just give up now completely. Where do you find yourself? Let's start with Dr. Holding, because you're a little bit younger than me.
Well, I don't know. The whole idea of dating terrifies me. It's been so many years since I did it. You'd want companionship, wouldn't you? It really depends.
No.
I think.
No, I
you
wouldn't.
Don't like companionship?
No, I'd be fine. Like, I've got to speak to people on podcasts and stuff, and there's people in the pub, and I don't know, people to play golf with.
You're not allowed to the pub now.
No,
you need a piece of paper to say you're allowed to go and casually
permission.
talk to someone.
Unless Matt Hancock personally tells you, then you can't go to the pub. Trumpets, do you need companionship? You're quite grumpy and sort of, you'd just sit in a cave somewhere on your own, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, I mean, between golf and sim racing and
exactly.
Playing the trumpet and everything else, it's hard to. I could easily fill the available hours. On the other hand, and this is the big downer, I'm thinking of the number of life skills and things that I'd have to deal with that I currently don't.
Okay, that's a good point.
It's very 50-50 for me in terms of the whole moving on thing. But you're right. I mean, I think immediately. No, I think just frankly, launching the child would be enough of an issue for me at the moment.
Yeah.
And let's face it, you've seen me with tech.
Yeah.
Dating tech is going to be so far beyond me. I can't even imagine. There'd be no way I'd make a profile that wasn't anything but mocked widely on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, if I'm being honest.
Is TikTok a dating app? Go on, sorry, Andrew.
If you get that much popularity, though, you're sorted. You're going to have, like, people just lapping you up to try and get your follower count off you. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay, good. I wanted to know that it wasn't just me, because I think I was watching this program. Go on, you say what you're thinking, Matt, and I'll say the program we were watching.
Oh, the chat room is just on fire. I apologize for interrupting, but Stuart Neal suggests we should probably move in, if that happens, together and create the new odd couple for the 21st century. And now everybody wants to see the movie.
What, the movie of me and Matt? Wifeless me and Matt.
Living together. Yeah, in the same house.
Yeah.
That would be a nightmare. And it would be an odd couple, I guarantee you.
Well,
I would definitely be Oscar.
Look, I'm definitely hoping that my wife doesn't die. I'm just saying, what would you do if they did? Because there was an old episode of I think King of Queens where he couldn't fantasize about having an affair because it would be cheating, like mentally cheating. So every time he wanted to fantasize about having an affair, his wife had to die in that scenario. So he'd fantasize about her dying first, and then he could continue guilt-free having his affair. But the program we were watching, I don't know if you caught it, Andrew, in the UK, it was called The 739, and it was about a dad, much like you and I, commuting every day to London, ends up having an affair with a younger woman he meets on the train. Did you catch that at all?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I won't do any spoilers or anything then. But it just led me to kind of go, people who have affairs must be the most organized, pathological liars, and they must like they must be like have gone to spy school or something, because it would stress me out so much. I would never know how to lie. I would never keep track of those lies. And how do people have the time? Like, there's no way I could be away from my house long enough to have an affair that and then account for that time. So I don't know how people do it. And I'm going to go ahead and assume that you're much like me, Dr. Holding. You don't strike me as a interesting enough person to go and have affairs. You're much like myself.
Yeah, no, I hadn't been contemplating having an affair. I'll admit that. But it is dependent on your lifestyle, because obviously as an academic, I go to conferences for a week sometimes, so I do get away. But like you, I just couldn't be bothered with the hassle. It's hard enough keeping one person happy.
Exactly.
And I quite enjoy that. But yeah, I don't see what an affair would bring to my life that I don't otherwise get. That's really it. Just more effort, more things to look after, and
exactly.
It's diminishing returns, isn't it? The more partners you have,
yes,
the less you're going to gain from them.
That's right.
Unless you're a psychopath and you have no guilt, which is a thing.
See, Matt, it's maths and logistics. That's all that's keeping me faithful.
Yeah, all I could think when he said that was, yeah, it's hard enough keeping one person happy. Never mind my wife. Never mind my mistress.
Exactly. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Let's go on to some sciencey stuff. Dr. Holding, let's catch up with actual science of COVID from you, because I just don't know. I don't know what's going on at all. I feel like we're heading slowly towards a version of a second lockdown. Certainly we're getting like a spread in the community. That's all over the headlines at the moment, and we're getting increasing restrictions. So in my head, I am mentally preparing for all of us being at home again for an extended period of time. How do you see it? And, what's your take on what's currently going on? And I've got much more detailed questions as well.
So, it's interesting you said the thing earlier that you struggle to know what the rule of six is and whatever. I think it's got so complicated, no one cares.
Yeah.
Also, all the politics where certain people went for eye tests and showed that rules don't always apply. But we've got into a situation where nobody really feels invested in what's going on.
That's right.
Nobody can follow the rules. No, people know the rules only apply to certain people at certain times. So as far as I'm concerned, we're in a real big mess. The number of cases are going up. Unfortunately, the number of deaths are not, which is probably just because we're testing more. But there is a lag in them. And we probably will start to see deaths. And even if that lag is longer now, eventually what happens, you have so many cases in the little kids at the schools that eventually starts getting the grandparents, and we'll start seeing the deaths come. So it might be a different timescale, but it's not positive.
But Dr. Holding, we were told in the summer, and I'm not trying to do an I told you so, but we were told in the summer children don't spread COVID, and there was no risk to opening the schools. My anecdotal evidence, and I know to be wary enough of that, is that every time the kids go back to school, we get coughs and colds. Every parent who has a baby, when the kids start going to nursery or start going to school, they suddenly find they're getting more coughs and colds. A 5-year-old's birthday party is just tired, semi-alcoholic grown-ups coughing gently while their children run amok. So in my head, there was absolutely no doubt that children would spread coronavirus when they went back to schools, but we were told over and over again, no, it's a low risk of spread. So A, was that wrong? And was my instinct correct? And what was the thinking? Why would biologically a child spread a virus like a common cold, but not spread coronavirus?
I think the data is still complicated, and someone who doesn't do epidemiology, like the study of how these things go around communities day in, day out, what we've seen is a lot of people have tried to do that and got it wrong. But I think the thing was, when we were looking at symptomatic children, you just weren't getting the symptoms in those school-age kids, so therefore they wouldn't have the ability to get the virus out and cough over people and make it worse. Was that right or wrong? We still don't really have the data to know, I don't think. What I would say is what we've seen has gone wrong is that the government said, certainly in the UK, oh, you need to go back to work. You need to go and eat out. We'll pay for you to eat out. We'll do it. Oh, God, now R's risen. It's like everyone knew that they were things that would cause R to go up.
Yeah.
And I was at the time actually, because everyone knew was saying this is crazy, I said, well, I'll defend them because over the summer the schools are shut. You actually have the space to do this. But you're going to have to shut it down before you reopen the schools and people start moving around. Certainly if you open universities.
Ooh.
And we haven't done that. And that, to me, is where we've gone wrong.
So I think we've used that the analogy before. It was like a tourniquet. So we needed to open the tourniquet with the shops and the pubs and the businesses to let a little bit of blood back into the dying limb of our economy. And then we needed to also open the tourniquet to let the schools and education, so that didn't die. But now we've got both lines. We've loosened it enough for both. So now we're bleeding out, aren't we? So now the wound is gushing, and we need to tighten the tourniquet back up again.
And I think what scares me is the evidence is with all these lockdowns is the earlier you lock down, the less time you have to lock down for, etc., etc. So I feel we'll be better off overreacting now, getting that R back down, getting the cases to drop again, and then once we've done that, we then relax. And because it will be a shorter time, where if we wait and we have more cases, then it takes longer to readjust. And that's my feeling on it. But to be honest, I think the best thing our government could do in this country is actually just give advice on like a nice little 5-point chart that you can understand.
Yeah, that would want some clarity. Yeah, that would be brilliant. Matt, are you kind of, what's your view watching, UK people talking about rule of 6 and all this stuff? Like you've alluded to earlier, you said, there's not really any rules at the moment. Is it really just like that? They're just not doing anything?
They are on a state by state and in some places city by city basis, which is terrible. We do not have a coordinated response from our government, of which I am critical about said lack of plan, even if it's not perfect. And I would take, like, I get your tourniquet analogy, because I'm going to say it the American way. Thank you very much.
Tourniquet.
But I do feel compelled to point out that this was always a choice. The choice was that we will sacrifice a certain number of people in order that businesses can operate.
Yeah.
But that at the governmental level, that is always a choice that they make. And they're not constrained by a reality that leaves them with no other choices.
Okay, and yeah, it's very easy to sit and judge when you're not the one making the decision and the policy. So I'm acknowledging that must be a very, very hard balancing act. And I'm glad my job is to say things in a vaguely amusing way and not decide between the economy and people's health. So I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do at all. But I know you had some comment on the test and trace stuff, Andrew, because I have not yet downloaded the app. I don't know what it's called. I don't know what to do with it. Have the Twitter mobs decided if it's good or bad? Are the cool kids doing it yet? What's going on?
So the Twitter mob this morning was complaining that if you have an old iPhone, you can't install the app because you need iOS 13.6 or something to actually install it. And they're going, oh, this is terrible with Matt Hancock that he hasn't done the right thing and made it work on every possible iPhone. I've installed it. It's not very eventful. I did go and try and find out why you can't install it on older iPhones, and the only person who I found came up with a single fact is that only about 4% of the iPhones in use can't actually install this app. So actually, they're old phones. They're 6-year-old phones. You can't install it.
I mean, if you own a very old iPhone, like, I don't know, what sort of human being are you? Like, you've made the mistake to go iOS in the first place, but you can't even be bothered to update it. I don't know. Don't Apple phones, don't they deliberately... Obviously, I'm joking. Calm down. Don't they deliberately go out of date and make it so that the battery doesn't last long and anything? So isn't it hard to have an older iPhone anyway?
So people say this, and I disagree, because I've owned Apple and Android products, and I find my Apple products generally get updates longer than my Android products. And the whole thing about how they deliberately slow down phones actually was exactly the opposite if you understood how phones worked. It's just they didn't tell anyone they were doing it. And what they were doing was they were making the phone slow down if the battery had got old. And the reason they did that was if they didn't do that, the phone just crashes. And all the other companies are going, oh, well, we never do this. Their phones literally would just reboot randomly at the same age. So what Apple got wrong there was they handled the PR really badly, not that this was a bad feature, because actually I would rather a phone that got a bit slower than a phone that just rebooted randomly when I was doing stuff.
Okay. So all in all, I'm going to, Matt, go on.
Well, I have my questions from earlier, if now is an appropriate time.
Is it to do with test and trace?
No, it has to do with masks, actually, and the changing of the rules.
Yeah, go on then.
Sorry, I must have missed something in your discussion talking to the chat room. But Mark Greenhow said that the rules now say that I have to wear a mask all day at work, except while eating. Scientifically speaking, how feasible is it to eat crisps for 8 hours a day? And somewhat more seriously,
No, I love that. That's a great way to get around it.
Martin Dooley asked, could you confirm that the face covering, that it's a face covering to protect you from touching your own face rather than anything to do with inhalation or exhaling virus? And we can see the confusion because Kaylee said, I hear we get less chance of viral droplets if we wear a mask. So are you up to date on where mask science is?
Can I take a guess? Can I take a punt?
I'll let Spanis go first.
Just let me take a punt quickly. I saw someone trying to prove that masks do nothing by taking a puff on a cigarette, putting the mask on, and then blowing out. And he showed, the air just coming up down and to the sides and up the top a little bit. And he was like, see, they don't do anything. But what I think he accidentally did was perfectly demonstrate what the mask does. And if he had not had the mask on and he'd blown out, it would have all gone about 2 or 3 meters forward and spreads, the smoke everywhere. Think about when you're in a park or you're walking around town. If you can smell someone's cigarette smoke, that came out of their lungs. So if they had coronavirus is like there in that smoke. So to me, the mask isn't really to protect you. It's to stop your breath projecting out. And I thought that was the sole purpose of the mask. Tell me if I'm wrong.
So I think why we have confusion about masks is when they first appear, like when we back in March or even February, people going, oh, don't overuse masks. We need them for medical professionals. Don't touch them. Don't do this. Don't do that. Medics wear masks to stop getting infections from the patient into them and them getting infections into the patient. Because if you're a medic, you're often dealing with sick people who can have horribly contagious diseases, etc., etc. They have to have a level of hygiene well above what you and I usually worry about. Now, what then happened to people that actually do wear masks, because what they do, and it's exactly what you're saying, they stop those droplets coming out your mouth and spraying virus over everyone else. They're not very good actually at stopping you getting the virus off other people because you do touch your face and touch other things and all that goes wrong. But it doesn't actually matter how they work. The point is they do reduce the amount of viral particles that are coming out of you. And there's this weird idea that anything we put in place has to be 100% effective, which is totally rubbish. If something is 50% effective, that still reduces the amount of people you affect by half, which still is brilliant. And I think that's what we need to really start accepting is don't aim for perfect, aim for good enough or better than what we have without them. Matt?
Well, I always like the seatbelt analogy. Like, I can wear a seatbelt and be in a car crash and I can still die. But my odds of dying go down significantly if I wear a seatbelt. If I wear a mask, it may not protect me in every situation, but it just makes it less likely that I'm going to get sick.
I think the difference with a mask, which is what people are struggling with, is it's much better at helping other people than helping yourself. So it's more of an altruistic thing that if you happen to have caught COVID and you don't realize it, you are therefore not spreading it over everyone you know. And that generally seems to be the promise. People are going, well, I don't want to wear one because I can't see the point for me. And that's just selfish, really. It's a trivial thing to do. If you hate them, just spend less time in areas where you need to wear one.
I've not had a massive problem with the mask, to be honest. I'm not trying to be sort of holier than thou or put down people who do genuinely struggle to wear them. But it's shockingly convenient. I've got 4 Missed Apex branded ones, missedapexpodcast.com/buy stuff, and they're cool. And they've got a little M in the corner, or one's got Missed Apex. One's even got a racing car on the front. There you go. Dr. Holding's got his black and white one on there. So I think by now, people have spent their £8 getting one that looks fine. It's almost a fashion accessory. It feels like you're doing something productive. It to me, it never has made me feel claustrophobic or suffocated. Maybe very, very early on for a short amount of time at the beginning. And plus, it cuts down conversations, which is fantastic. Like, you go to a shop, and if you answer one word yes or no, people don't push it. People don't mind. There's a lot less chat just going around getting your jobs done. And I found that quite good.
So the more important question, which we haven't answered yet, is can you eat crisps all day long? And I think with a good grazing strategy, you can do it.
Okay, so if we get down into the nuts and bolts of this, when are you taking a pause between crisps? When does that constitute not eating anymore? So if you eat a crisp and then type a couple of things, and then your hands hovering to the next crisp, how long do you have to not eat a crisp for before you're no longer eating crisps and thus have to wear a mask in Mark's workplace? Sorry, Matt, come on. I wasn't asking. Yeah, hi.
Oh, I thought you were asking Dr. Holding that question, because that sounds like the thing a scientist would answer, not a rando podcast co-host.
Well, if you're going to leave me for difficult questions, I think as long as you're moving towards that crisp, you're still eating the crisp. So you just have to do it really slowly.
So any movement towards the crisp mark and you're still eating your crisps. So I think you can make a bag of crisps last 40 minutes. So that means you would eat, this is all guesses, of course. Hang on. I gave myself maths that's too difficult, didn't I? So over 9 hours, that's 6 bags of crisps. I think you can do it. If you don't eat anything else and that's your calories, then that's fine. In fact, Jack's got a better definition. If you're chewing, it's fair game. That might be a better barometer. Always be chewing.
Chewing and picking up the next one, because you should wait before your mouth is empty before you go for the next one. So I think that lets you spread it out a bit more. And of course, you can go for something a bit healthier than crisps. You go for Pom Bear or whatever it is, which is lighter and fluffier.
You should, however, stay away from black licorice, because there was a story out on NBC today about a construction worker who ate like a bag and a half of black licorice a day, and he actually perished because there's a compound in it. I want to say it's glycoresinic acid that completely messed up his electrolytes, and he literally just collapsed on a sidewalk, and they were not able to save him. So limit the consumption of the black licorice, especially if you're over age 40, was the point of that article.
Have you heard of it? I mean, everything's a poison in enough quantity, isn't it, Dr. Holding?
Yeah, I have to say I wasn't up on the latest black licorice research or how big black licorice corporations were trying to kill us. But everything's fatal in a large quantity. Water's fairly fatal in low quantities if you take it in the wrong direction. So.
Well, there we go. Well, we've opened up our call lines because not only do we like to drop our Zoom meeting ID into our Patreon Slack group. This is for our Missed Apex patrons. We've yet to set up anything for Remain Indoors and probably won't. We drop in the Zoom ID so people can drop in. But we've also got a phone number as well. There is now a dedicated UK phone number so people can just literally call in like a radio and it patches into my desk. How fancy is that, Matt?
It is awesome that we are able to do this and really pretend. You can really cosplay radio show now.
Cosplay. Don't say we're cosplaying radio show. It makes it sound cheap. I don't like it. That is the title of the episode, though. Cosplaying radio show. So you can call us on that. I'm trying to figure out whether it can work with WhatsApp, so it's free for our international callers. But we love hearing from you. We love people dropping in. Like Lucas. Hello, Lucas.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Oh, sounding very good there with your Yeti microphone and a little sound pad behind it as well.
Yeah, I added some this week so it didn't echo as much.
So now you are one of the people that we were talking about because you dropped me a message in our Slack group during the week. Hope I'm not telling tales. And you said, I'm starting a podcast. So we hate you now. We dislike rival podcasts. We wish you the very worst. And I hope you pod fade after 3 episodes. After having told, this is crucial, Matt, after having told his whole family and friends about it really excitedly, because that's what everyone does when they start a podcast.
Well, we have 4 episodes, so sorry.
Damn.
That's not what I was going to say. I was going to say he absolutely needs to credit us on every show, because if you go back way in the back times, Anil and I have already done this very thing with the 99 European Grand Prix.
Oh, go on then, Lucas. What's your podcast about? Tell us.
Podcast is about like racing history. So we talk about old drivers, tracks, cars, things like that. Nothing current, so we don't step on any toes.
You better not.
And we also try to make jokes, but we're not very funny.
No. The idea is, I think with humor, is to never ever try and make any jokes. Try and have fun, and if some humor spills out of that, you can accidentally do it. But it's never tell anyone ever that you're trying to be funny. Reduce expectation. But what was your call in for? Not just to plug your soon to be doomed podcast.
So I did have a question. I know somebody in the chat actually brought it up. Is the importance of viral load? So a doctor here in Houston was 28 years old. She was a resident, pretty healthy, and then she ended up dying from COVID because of viral load, is what they suspect. So I was just asking about, the importance of minimizing the viral load.
Okay, Doc's holding. What's viral load?
So viral load is how much virus you get into you when you're getting infected. So if someone like dropped a huge truckload of virus on you, you're quite likely to get infected. If someone drops one virus on you, it's not going to happen so well. The difficulty of all these studies, because they're normally in low number, is how do you know that that person got a high viral load than someone else, rather than they had some underlying genetic difference or some medical complication or something else that made them at risk. And I would say, whilst you always want to keep the viral load down, because once the virus is into you, it will get a hold slower if there's less of it, we don't really know in a lot of these cases what the viral load was at infection. And that's really, a lot of it ends up being conjecture rather than actually knowing at this time. But it's a valid point that if you wear a mask, you're less likely to get bucket loads of virus in your nose and mouth.
Okay, I had no idea that it mattered how much coronavirus I got. I thought that like you once you get it, you get it. I thought it was like being pregnant. You can't be a bit pregnant, but you can have increasing amounts of coronavirus. So which one do I want? Do I want a tons of it and get it all done, or do I want a little bit? What do I want? If I'm
you want
getting
as little as possible.
Oh, okay.
Best of all, none.
Best of all, none. Yeah.
I mean, what it means is if you get one virus and it infected one cell, that would be like a little pocket of making more coronavirus in your body. If you get like 1 million virus particles and they infect 1 million cells, all those 1 million cells will make more virus. And because it's this exponential growth equation, that means if each of those cells was to make a million virus, then you'll then have 100 million or 1 million or whatever, depending how many cells you got infected. And that scales very rapidly against you.
And that was your point, Matt?
Yeah, I was going to say basically the larger N is when you start on an exponential curve, the more rapidly you become overwhelmed. We've also had a vitamin question in the chat.
Well, hold on. Let's hold that there for a second. Okay. We'll say goodbye to Lucas. Thanks for calling in. But where are you actually calling in from, Lucas?
So I'm calling in from Houston. So we've gotten hit pretty hard by
right. What
COVID.
State is that in, or is that a state?
That's in Texas.
Right. Okay. So you're like in like the deep south of America. I'm going to go again. I'm just going to stereotype from what I've seen off telly. Is Texas a little bit more kind of like, oh, you can't tell us to wear a mask and do what we say. We'll do whatever we want, and it's not real anyway. Is that the case?
I mean, once you get out of the cities, and even sometimes like just in the suburbs, even, it's basically like, oh, we're just gonna shoot the virus. It can't hurt us.
Okay. I'm not meaning to mock Texans. That is just the impression I've got from the news that that's what they're like. So, do you find yourself as a bit of an outlier in amongst your?
Oh yeah,
right. Okay.
I've been here for like 6 years now, so I'm still not quite fully Texas, and I do feel like a bit of an outlier when it comes to that, because I like mask everywhere. Like even if we go to a restaurant, I'll put my mask back on between bites.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'll put my mask on going to the bathroom or going in, but not once I'm at a table. Matt?
I was going to say the real tell was he didn't say the great state of Texas, which all real Texans say whenever they mention the word Texas.
Where are you from originally? What state, Matt?
I'm from the northern part of the U.S., so Wisconsin.
Okay. What about you, Trumpet?
I'm actually from the South originally.
Atlanta.
I was born in Tennessee and grew up in Georgia, in Atlanta. It was a city, though, and my dad taught at a college. So
there you go. You've swapped around, you two. Anyway, thank you, Lucas, for your call. We hope we can see you again, and genuinely good luck for your podcast. Hit me up if you need any pointers or help or anything.
I will do that. Thanks, guys.
Bye. I was being insincere. I have no interest in helping a rival podcast in any way, shape, or form. Boo other podcasts. What was the vitamin question, Matt? The question about vitamins.
Stuart Neal asked in the chat
about vitamins.
whether taking vitamins would be helpful or have any protective effect with regards to COVID.
So I've seen this go around a lot, this idea that vitamin D will help you with COVID. I haven't actually yet seen any great controlled studies checking out whether it's true or not, but I think it's reasonable to say that there's circumstantial evidence there that it does help. And as long as you don't try mega dosing, which is always a bad idea and silly, vitamin D isn't going to do any harm. And it is plausible, let's say, unlike a lot of other things that people come up.
So I was yelling at Kyle Power in one of our WhatsApp chats about vitamins, and let's see if I'm right. My take on this is, obviously a lack of vitamins can be bad, but most people who eat a normal-ish diet, your body can pretty much make all the vitamins you need except vitamin D. So going and buying a bottle of extra vitamin C or multivitamins or something essentially only does something if you've got a specific deficiency.
Yep, and in the case of the water-soluble vitamins like vitamin C, if you just take more of it, you just end up peeing it back out again, which is basically you're paying for very expensive urine. Yeah,
but I mean, it's such a good marketing ploy the vitamin people have done. You know, my mum used to give me a multivitamin every day, you know, when that was all the fashion. And so they've made absolutely billions from just making you pee vitamins through your body that you definitely don't need, unless the doctor tells you need them.
Yeah, and if you look at most packets of cereal, like cornflakes, whatever now, they're fortified with vitamins and iron. So they've already added the vitamins onto your cornflakes for you.
Oh, okay.
But what you're right about is vitamin D
yes.
is the one that stands out because you need sunshine. And if you live in this country, you never have any sunshine, so you're probably deficient in vitamin
There we go. So Kaylee's just made that point there as well. Need sun. So in the northern hemisphere, you may need it. So is there a specific one for replacing sunlight? Is there like a vitamin D tablet?
So there is vitamin D, but just correct that, isn't the northern hemisphere, it's as you get away from the equator. So it could be the southern hemisphere. Just Australia, beyond Australia, there isn't much. So it's less of an issue. If you...
But Peru is
very
freezing.
bizarrely, the continents aren't balanced between north and south, which is always something that slightly confuses people.
Yeah.
But the other thing is skin color and migration. So if you're as pale as I am, you probably don't have an issue if you get out once in a while. If you were, from sub-Saharan Africa and moved to the UK, you probably make no vitamin D no matter how sunny it is because your body's all geared up to actually see sunlight once in a while.
Well, there we go. Well, there we go. Vitamins. Interesting. Before we go, I want to explore one point that I saw come up on social media, and it was a TV clip of Matt Hancock being questioned by a TV interviewer. Matt Hancock is our health secretary, by the way, Matt. Being questioned on how long is this ban on casual sex going to continue? The idea being that you're not supposed to mix with people from a different household in these certain areas. I believe it's only certain areas. Therefore, that stops you hooking up. And Matt Hancock was sitting there trying to very tactfully try to talk about what you can and can't do, and mentioned that if you are in an established relationship, yes, you can go and see each other and have some birds and bees contact. But if you're not, then you can't. So essentially, I think what they're trying to say is you can't go for a dirty hookup. But I thought, what makes an established relationship? At what point is a relationship established, do you think?
When you pass third base? I don't know.
When you I'm
not going to tell you what I was going to say.
Go on, let's have it.
But it's hilarious. Huh?
Let's see. Obviously, says Dave L8485 as a response to my tweet. He says, when farts are funny and not embarrassing. When being naked isn't automatically foreplay. David says, when you know each other's name. No, David. Naughty. And Granny Annie makes a good point and says, how are they going to police it? And so I was thinking there should be a new branch called Sex Police. And that's, yeah.
I still think the best comments I saw on this though were the fact that if there's casual relationships, that means there must be, formal relationships and smart casual relationships going on the type of invites you get to events. And therefore it leads me to ask, what is a smart casual sexual relationship?
So yeah, if people are inviting you as a couple, then you're an established couple, I think. But I think my favourite one was mine, which is if you can pee with the door open, it's an established relationship. If you can't do that yet, it doesn't count, and you have to wait till the restrictions are lifted.
I was just going to say that the obvious answer, regardless of circumstances, is, well, I was very serious about going to this relationship, so I don't see what the problem is. There was nothing casual about it. We were definitely going to do something.
Well, it's.
Yeah,
go on.
I like Christopher's one in the chat. When you're dating so long that you're no longer having sex, that's when it's
an established. That's when it's an established relationship. But I do feel sympathy for the guys and girls that are in their 20s now, because I was thinking, if I was 24 and these restrictions were coming down and affecting my life, I, hand on heart, can promise I would have ignored them completely. With my 40-year-old sensible dad head on, I'd say, no, you need to do your bit, and you need to just it's not going to be long. Just hunker down, have cold showers, and watch reruns of Margaret Thatcher speeches, and you'll be okay. You'll get through this. But as a 24-year-old, I would definitely have ignored it. And I think that I'm so not unique in that aspect that it's almost worthless saying it, because nobody's going to listen to that. There's not going to be some 23-year-old lad sat home going, well, I have got a positive response to my booty call there, but no. Matt Hancock says no. I'm going to stay at home and watch reruns of Formula One races. It's not going to happen, is it? It's going to get ignored.
We have loads of evidence from college campuses here in the U.S. that you are exactly correct
about.
What's
been happening in college campuses?
There have been massive spikes in coronavirus cases in campuses that have opened, mainly due to people going off campus and partying together, or sometimes partying even on campus. It is what people that age will do, given half a chance, because they're young. And we started off with the idea that people who were young were less likely to get it and less likely to be seriously ill. And that, as with many zombie ideas, has persisted, even though evidence to the contrary has turned up since.
Well, there you go, Dr. Holding. You work in 2 universities. Would you like to comment on the effects of sexual promiscuity? You sure?
I don't want to make any comment. Yeah, you know what? I respect my job. Well, it's a genuine concern, though, for universities. What are we going to do about this? And the UK and the US are under very different political situations. Fundamentally, I think we can be fairly confident that we were in a situation which meant the universities had to go ahead, or the government had to bail out the universities, and the government chose not to bail out the universities. And so what we've done is put in place, with a lot of hard work, a system that should be as safe as possible. But I think the better option would have been actually for the government to just say, right, we're covering the costs this year to keep everyone at home, we'll do tuition from home. I think that would have been the right thing, but the money was not there. And I think what we've ended up with is something that's politically very dangerous, which is why I'm not sure I want to make a deep comment about it.
No, that's completely fine. It's completely fine, Dr. Holding. I'm surprised that during the initial lockdown, when the kids were still getting homework and the schools were shut, I am surprised that more teachers didn't just get online, get a group of the kids together, and routinely just on a big Zoom call say, hey, shut up, everyone. I want to see your faces. I want to see you looking at me. I'm going to set you the tasks, because they emailed the things and we could download them. Why more teachers just didn't do like a big group call? Hey, guys, I'm going to speak to you 2 times today to give you a bit of a heads up on the stuff. If your parents want to listen in, they're more than welcome. But it never happened. And I'm hearing like a lot of the private schools had full online classes, but down at our level, Dr. Holding, I never heard of any really doing that.
I can tell you why we didn't have online Zoom schools, because I was in a meeting, because I used to be a school governor until I moved to York and said it was too far away. They basically absolutely could not get Zoom as an option at primary level, because all they needed was for one child's brother or themselves to decide to walk behind the camera naked, and you've just committed a criminal offence with a jailable penalty. Because it would fail child protection. And there were many, many other very reasonable concerns like that. As soon as you put a camera in a child's house where you cannot control the environment and that feed can be turned on to the other people in the room, it's far simpler to pre-record stuff and provide that.
Well, that's true, but then
our school did do.
All right, well, we never got that.
Of course,
either.
Some schools did. There was a very much a variety of provision between different schools, and I think some schools did let down the communities they were in compared to others. But
yeah,
some schools were less resourced than others, so it's not time to point fingers, I think, there.
Okay, so Dr. Holding, given that your daughters participate in some of my wife's online lessons, please don't walk naked behind them whilst they're participating in those lessons. So we can avoid those pitfalls. But yeah, certainly my wife's had to jump through all sorts of hoops to get those lessons up and running. So, okay, I'm being too harsh on the teachers there. Good. We've learnt a lot, have we? I still don't know what the rule of 6 is. I still don't know who I'm allowed to hook up with. Probably safer just to go no one.
Unless you and me, anytime.
Oh, see that might work. That might work because we can say we're podcasting. Brilliant! I finally found out how I'm going to have an affair. Good, it's all worked out. I still don't know where I'm meant to mix with people or where I can't mix with people. I guess we have to just kind of go about our lives until we're specifically told not to do something. But we have to pay attention and keep watching the news and keep doom scrolling on Twitter and Facebook just to find out what the rules are today. And that leads you down a path you don't want to be on, which is doom scrolling on Facebook and Twitter. So I don't know. I don't know what we've learned, but I'm glad you're here. Dr. Andrew Holding at Dr. Holding. No, you don't use Dr. do you on Twitter? At Andrew Holding. Just at Andrew Holding. There we go. So search for him on Twitter. If you want to help him cure cancer, just send him any ideas. Any ideas you've got on a postcard to Dr. Andrew Holding at York University. So that's how to contact Andrew. In fact, no, you've got stuff on Instagram and stuff too, haven't you?
Yeah, I do use Instagram, but not as much. My main place is Twitter, which is just Andrew Holding. I Instagram stuff and have pretty photos to take. I like Instagram, though, because it seems to be more positive and less mean and horrible.
Yeah,
it's really... You just put a pretty photo up and people go like or make a nice comment. People don't generally go, oh, you're a person for Big Pharma or something.
Fair enough. Matt Trumpets, of course, is at MattPT55. You can follow this show at Indoors Remain, because I still haven't corrected that after my initial error. And you can follow me at Spanners Ready. We've all learned something. Sex and science on the Remain Indoors podcast. Have a good one, guys. Wear your masks, be kind, work hard, and have fun. It's only life, isn't it? Good. Like that. Dr. Holding's wearing his mask.